Okay.
All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. Thank you so much again for stopping by. This is a community of CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and yes, intrapreneurs that we interview here on the Go for CEO channel because what is it that is bringing this community together? It's people like my next guest. I have had a plethora the last few weeks of people that I've met on Clubhouse, built relationships with, and now they're coming on the Go for CEO channel to teach you about how they built their business, marketing, scaling, funding, all these different areas that you just may not know about and you may not be getting from other motivational shows and things on YouTube. But we are excited here to have a legendary icon in the fashion industry, Angela Taylor George. Thank you so much for coming on board and being on the Go for CEO channel. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm great, John. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, that's so cool. What an awesome background. We were just kind of talking about the placement of everything. I mean, you just think of all these little details, right? And obviously you were in the fashion industry because you think of details, you think of what people are wearing and all that type of stuff. And so cool to have gotten a chance to know you over the last few months. So on the Go for CEO channel, we'd like to just, initially have you intro yourself and share a little bit about kind of your background. And then how did it, start? How did your brand start? And then we'll go from there. So take it away.
Okay, great. So I was born in a little house. No, so no, I'm from New York, and I'm from a suburb of New York. And yeah, I mean, I from high school, I started college, I dropped out after one semester, ended up starting to work in the city, and I just got right into retail, so I was just like right into fashion. But when I was 16, I did work in a store in my town, and that was when I was really introduced to the whole industry, because they took me on a buying trip on the weekend. I was 16 years old working in this retail store. It was like designer denim and unisex store, and they took me to the city, which is about maybe a half hour to 40 minutes from where I grew up, and the city being Manhattan, and took me to the trade show. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like I like the industry. And I was, at the New York Coliseum, which is now Time Warner. There used to be a place called the New York Coliseum. That's before Javits and everything. That's where all the trade shows happened. And that was when I got bit by the fashion bug. So I ended up at FIT, and I ended up working in the city when I was like 20. I just was like, I'm going to work in the city. I'm going to FIT at night. And off I went. And I've had a career in fashion for the last 4 decades. I know I don't look that old, but the last 4 decades. And and in 1989, I started my own company. So I was working in my industry. I was learning. I had bosses that were mentors to me. I learned a lot. I worked very closely with the bosses I worked with. So I was really able to kind of I thought about this the other day, like where was my mentorship, but they were really my mentors. So I did learn a lot about the industry from them. And then I started a repping agency in 1989, which was basically a sales and marketing agency that connected the brands with the retail stores. This was all pre-internet. So before direct to consumer, before Shopify, before anything, you sold wholesale, and then retail buyers would buy, and then be in the department stores and whatever, Saks, Fifth Avenue, department stores, chain stores, boutiques. And so I did that for 10 years. And then, and through that course, I did open a retail store in that time as well. So I did have my own retail store. My background was in buying. I was a buyer for many years before I started my company. So that was my background. But then I got into the sales and marketing on the wholesale end. And then I don't mean to confuse, but anyway, in 1997, I started my own brand, which was Alice and Trixie, which I had for the last 22 years. So that was a fashion brand, sold globally, doing, consistent multiple seven figures a year. And then I did go direct to consumer in the latter years with that brand as well. So that's and then that brings us to here pretty much, brings us to the pandemic at least.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and I heard three different unique things there, Angela, is you spent time in the industry, you had great mentorship, then you repped other labels so that you can kind of have the understanding of how to get into the buying process and power. And then you created Alice and Trixie. So take us to that step. You have, this representative mind and the way that you've built your business it sounded like around 8 or 9 years. And then all of a sudden you flip the switch and get your own brand. What is the process of that? And how did you start thinking like, hey, these are the colors, these are the way I want to stitch, or, all those types of things?
Yeah, I love that you picked, it's really interesting. You picked up on those salient points, and that was great. I think that, well, I'll tell you really the seed for wanting to do Alice and Trixie first, and then we can go into colors and that kind of thing. But what happened was when you're repping designers, I had a showroom in New York and a showroom in LA, and our showroom was known as like the showroom to go to where you could see multiple brands of the moment, the hottest trends. Like I remember, like Mariah Carey, I met her. She came into my showroom, like, celebrities of the moment. I mean, Rachel Zoe, who ended up becoming that iconic stylist, and she has the Zoe Report. She used to come into my showroom as a young editor, assistant editor at a magazine that's probably now defunct, YM Magazine. It used to be Young Miss, and then became YM. So a lot of like, it was like the beginning of the beginning. So my showroom was really cool, really hot. I had the best designers, the best brands. But what happened was, the more success, and everybody wanted to be in my showroom because we had the connections. We had all the buyer connects. We knew where you needed to be. We knew the buyers to call. They would come because they knew they could see a lot of amazing product, and we were always on the cutting edge of fashion. So as a result, you would have people that want the synergy that we had. So they would come in. It was, it was a commission-based operation. So we would make commission, like at the time it was 10%. Then it became 12, and now it's 15, but 10% commission on whatever we sold and they shipped. And that was the model. And then they would pay like a showroom fee and then the commission when they shipped. So as a result, people would want to get into my showroom because they'd want to have all that access. But as their business grew, paying us 10% became a lot. It became the sales in the company. It was like, the accountants would come in and say, you're paying too much for sales. You already have the client. She got you in all the stores. You just need to move into your own, what they would call a corporate showroom. So they would go into their own showroom after we've already made all the connections for them. But that was the business model. But what would happen is the more success I had, the more at risk I was to lose the line, because the bigger I got them, then they would leave. But that is the business model. You're kind of cycling through building brands. But I got to the point where I would be so involved with these designers. I would be traveling. I would go to Europe. I would go to, a lot of them were in LA based. I would go to LA all the time. I would work with their design teams. I would help them. Part of the success was because I was on the front line and I knew what everybody wanted. I knew what the trends were. So I was able to guide my designers. So that being said, I would really feel invested in these brands. So when they left, it was like a child leaving, it was like a child leaving. So I decided in 1997, like no more. And at the time there was a famous commercial, like get a piece of the rock. It was like Allstate, that used to be their tagline, get a piece of the rock. And I'm like, I want a piece of the rock. So I'm like, I need to create my own brand that's not going to leave me. And that was really the genesis for me creating Alice and Trixie. So as far as getting into how it started, we talk about start something and iterate, get an MVP out there. And even then I was still like kind of creating and morphing the brand. Like I kind of saw maybe some need in the market. So I looked at my relationships, like the people I had relationships with, what I could produce, and what could I create for them? Because I knew, for instance, at the time there was like Urban Outfitters, which was still a big company, still in existence. And I had a really great relationship with that buyer. So I'd be like, what can I do for Urban Outfitters? So I was doing like a market fit. And then from there started to get my own, feeling. It kind of just like took on its own thing. And then I became known for something. And then I became known for something. And then I became known for something else that really pivoted the company and like skyrocketed to, success.
That's pretty incredible, and I love the part where you're like, hey, you have an epiphany almost. You're like, I keep on launching, I keep on bringing all these, brands to market, and then the life cycle is this long, but how could you create something that is everlasting, right? And then you started creating Alice and Trixie. So tell us a little bit about, what that transition looks like within, having a very complete service. It looked like it's an A to Z service, but then because it got to Z, it kind of ended some of that revenue stream. So walk us through a little bit of like that transition, maybe your time as the founder CEO of this company, and how you started to develop kind of a little bit of a different, era of business.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the era of business was okay, so the marketing agency um, was basically pushing paper. Like
Mhm.
this is, and in those days, in the old days, we used to have like fax machines. Like we would fax the orders, right? And I remember I had one brand who I really built their business very big. And I remember he would say, when you fax the order, your job is done and my nightmare begins. Like I'm done. Like I'm just like faxing that order and I'm moving on to sell something else to somebody else. But
Right.
now he's got to create it, produce it, finance it, ship it, get paid for it. So that was, I remember him saying that, and that's kind of, so what happened. So now here I am and I'm manufacturing. So now I'm involved in all these processes. So it's about creating the product. It's about making sure it fits. It's about having the right quality. It's about, making sure I have, well, this a new team. I'm building a team. I'm building pattern makers and I mean, I always had a bookkeeper, but maybe someone that was like the bookkeeping got more advanced with manufacturing and stuff. So different bookkeeper, production manager, shipper. It starts to kind of build out from there. I always had the sales team because I was a repping agency. So that was the beautiful thing. I mean, people say, yes, I've had success, but I did have these stepping stones that sales and marketing is everything. If you can have the most amazing product out there, but if nobody knows about it and you don't get it out, if you don't have sales and marketing, boom. So
Done.
when I think back, I really had these kind of stepping stones to success already laid out for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? So you mentioned a little bit about kind of the supply chain process, and back in the day, it wasn't as automated. You didn't have the connectivity that you have nowadays worldwide. What are two or three different things that you noticed pretty much right away, even though you weren't in that side of the business, you instantly caught on to like, wow, this is going to have to be 1, 2, 3 steps. So, could you share a little bit about the supply chain and how you start to master that process?
Yeah, I mean, I immediately think of the manufacturing because the design is the design. I mean, you have a design team where, we're sketching, we're creating, we're sourcing fabrics, where that's pretty straightforward, I think. But as far as the manufacturing process, that's where, which, I mean, yes, you have to create the patterns with your pattern maker. So you're creating these patterns, you're cutting them, you're sewing them. So you have different trades people, maybe the cutter is just a cutter and the sewer is just the sewer. Some people have somebody who cuts and sews, but if they're doing it, it's taking a longer time. Like it's taking longer time because they're cutting it and they're sewing it. Whereas you could have one person cutting, one person sewing. It gets, it's a little faster when you do it that way. Now I'm ordering fabric. I have deadlines. I have delivery dates. I have sales. I have to know when I can have to cut off my sales so I can buy the fabric to make the delivery date that we told everybody. Like we'll go to market, and just for argument's sake, we'll go to market in September and we're taking deliveries for like February, right? So we're in market in September, we're quoting people, we're showing a brand, we're showing a collection, we're in market in September, we're telling them we're going to deliver it in February. So now we have to look at okay, well, how long can I sell that? What's my sales window to when I have to stop selling it because I have to buy my fabric so I could make my production date of February. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like these steps and then knowing, well, this fabric is coming from here and it costs this much. And I mean, I didn't even talk about costing, which is like before actually, but that's another thing, like costing out the garments, how much fabric does it take? How much trim does it take? So that's one aspect. And now you're doing the garments, and we manufactured everything ourselves in New York. We did not outsource the manufacturing to China.
Mm.
So my company bought every fabric, every zipper, every label, every fusible, which is like interlining. When you when you have a stiff collar, it's
Mm.
got what's called a fusible or an interlining that goes in between the fabric to make it stiff. Every button, we bought everything for these garments. If it had a hang tag on it, or it needed like loops to hang on a hanger, we bought all those things. So now you have to imagine you're buying all those things, all the fabric, and then you're doing the garment, and then you have to make sure everything comes in on time together. Sometimes you'll be in a factory and they can't, if you didn't get the buttons for some reason and the thing is sitting there in the factory, like practically done with no buttons on it because you're waiting for buttons, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of moving parts. I guess the bottom line of what I'm trying to convey, it's a lot of moving parts. So there is a lot of, but I will tell you, we always shipped on time and we always shipped a quality product. But because we padded our deliveries, you know, like we would always cushion our deliveries. Like you can't, and the other thing is you can't say yes to a client, that a customer that you know, sometimes the big buyers would come in and they'd be like, well, we need it yesterday. And be like, that's great, but you never gave me an order yesterday. So, you know what I mean? So, and there are other people out there that would like, they just, certain people just want to get the order. They'll take the order, they'll try to make it, and then it doesn't happen. And then they're calling and they're asking what's called an extension. That means an extension of time to ship. And then you got the buy of the, well, I'll take the goods in, but I want 10% discount. You know, it just the list. I mean, I could, anyway, you can see, I could keep talking about this.
No, yeah, no, it's intricate, you know, it's very intricate. And, you know, I guess one thing I want to kind of share with the community is, you know, the first initial business, the marketing rep business really was kind of like, it was you. I mean, you could sense, you know, from your personality, from the relationship that we've built, you're just excellent with people and you built these incredible relationships. So that was one aspect, but I'm feeling that, you know, you added on like 10 other layers when you became Alice and Trixie, right? So what was the transition? Did you keep the marketing rep and then kind of had someone lead that, and then you put all your efforts here? What was that kind of that transition? And ultimately, did you just go Alice and Trixie only? How did that work for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did ultimately go Alice and Trixie only.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the very beginning, until, you know, until I knew it was like a formidable brand and I knew it had legs, I still kept my repping business, which we call it repping. I still kept my repping business. And yeah, and then eventually it just got where it was just all out. It was organic. It wasn't like one day I'm like, it's only going to be Alice and Trixie today. It wasn't like that. It was just like this kind of organic process where, you know, brands just started to kind of like, for whatever reason fell away and I didn't replace them. And then there was one, Alice and Trixie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about now the transition, right? How many employees or representatives or independent couch did you work with on the marketing rep? And then how many did you start to grow out, you know, over the years with Alice and Trixie? What would be that transitional number?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, you know, I had a couple of people that were selling for me that worked just for me. And then I started to get regional rep. Well, the first rep I got was, because I'm based in New York, the first logical place besides New York is usually California, the two coasts. So I did get a California rep. And so, you know, I was getting sales coming in from that agency. And then after that, I got a Dallas rep and I got a Southeast rep, an Atlanta rep. So that these are repping agencies that they were like what I started out. My company, my marketing and agency, my sales and marketing agency was called Times 2 Showroom. So they were basically like kind of that model. So they have like multiple line showroom, like they carry multiple lines in Atlanta and Dallas and LA. So I was working, you know, had my line in those showrooms. So I was paying them commission. And then I had people in New York that worked for me. And then I'm trying to think. Oh, at one point I did outsource to a New York showroom. I didn't do the sales in-house. I did outsource to a New York showroom, and I was in a New York showroom for a while. And yeah, so that was, and then of course I have, you know, the team that I had, which was the core team. And, you know, like I had at one point, like 25 employees, you know, so it was running, there was a lot. Yeah. There was a lot of people.
Yeah. And, you know, it keeps on going in my mind, like this lady, this iconic person in fashion, right, started in retail, then went the step back, which is marketing rep, then went the step back, and not back in like back bad business, but like literally you learned every single piece of the puzzle. And that is why we get to this point in your life. You know, you kind of sent your baby off, Alice and Trixie, right? If I can tell people, you did the selling off side, right? And you exited that part. But I'd love to get into where now you're this Angela Taylor George. You're on Clubhouse. We meet each other. tell us a little bit about how you now have transitioned. And I know that there's a lot to tell on the other side, which is why we're going to have you back in about 6 to 12 months to kind of keep on growing this tribe of people that'll start following you, hopefully on the Go for CEO channel. But what is this now, this next level? You've really mastered your industry. And now what are you up to nowadays?
Yeah, it's funny that I feel like I did go full circle. I always said that. I'm like, now I went full circle. Like I've been
Yeah.
all around. It's like exactly from the selling floor to retail buyer, managing. I was a retail store manager. I didn't mention that or before I started my businesses in '89. So yeah, like I've kind of done all the little steps, and and then doing the manufacturing definitely took me full circle. And now what I'm doing right now is I'm doing I really, based on my background, I feel like I, really understand brand very well. So I'm leaning in on that, on branding, also business strategy, as far as just like, and I'll be honest with you, the business strategy, it doesn't only come from my successes, but it comes from the things that I think I could have done better.
Mhm.
In hindsight, I look back, there were so many things I could have improved on in myself, and in the way I did business. And they say hindsight's 2020. So so I'm able to really effectively work with people on business strategy, on brand strategy. And yeah, so it takes me to now where I am, I'm definitely working on right now. I'm building out a course, Fashion Business Blueprint. And that's a course for, a lot of people, like they think, this is what a lot of people think. They're like, I made a product. I need to go get a website. And then they come on Clubhouse and they say, I don't understand why nobody's coming to my website. It's because they don't have a brand. They have a
Mhm.
product and they have a website and they don't have traffic. They have cold traffic. They haven't warmed an audience. They haven't, the rules of engagement have changed, through the years, the way that we attract people, and it's very different now. So there's something like I have, like, there are like 8 steps that people, they don't know of the 8 steps, but there are 8 steps, but they just go open a website, things like that. So I want to help people that they're not going to lose their money. And just like, because I was saying this the other day, actually, in a Clubhouse room, the internet is the good news and it's the bad news.
Mhm.
The good news is the barrier to entry is so low, and the bad news is the barrier to entry is so low, because anybody can pop open a Shopify store for $29 plus maybe a little bit more for a couple of apps if they know to add some plugins. Otherwise, it's only $29. They don't understand email marketing campaigns. They don't understand, retargeting. They don't understand ads. And even the ads, that's later anyway. I mean, I feel like running cold traffic ads are not the way to do it. You want to have an organic, like organic reach, organic following. So doing the Fashion Business Blueprint teaches all about that. And one other thing I'm working on, again, through collaboration, which I feel collaboration is the new currency, really it is. And it is collaboration over competition. And I met somebody in Clubhouse, Stacy, who I think you remember, Stacy Ross Cohen. We're co-creating something, we're co-creating a program for personal branding, because personal branding is so important. And she has her marketing and public relations agency in New York, very successful for the last 30 years. I have my background with branding. So together we're joining forces to create the Brand Profits, it's called. And so that's what we're doing together. So I'm super excited but again, everything revolves around brand for me. I think I'm like a brand. That's like, if you think about Angela Taylor-George, think about brand.
I love it. I love it. And on the Go for CEO channel, we love to kind of end with 3 different questions, Angela. And I know that we're going to have you back. We have a friendship, and I'm going to be following you and texting you and finding out what's going on with you. So I know that there's a lot of things that probably Go for CEO community, you're asking yourself, man, no, can you ask Angela this? Can you ask Angela that? Well, we're going to have her back. So don't worry about that. We actually might have her faster than the next 6 to 12 months, because I think we left a lot on the table, but I want you to be curious about what Angela's up to now. So you just heard a little bit of insight of where she's going, what she's doing, and just that 40 years of incredible experience. So Angela, we touched on a couple things, right? And the last 3 questions are client experience, which really kind of, it seems like the retailer was your client, right? Not necessarily the end user, but then you got into some of that end user space. So I want you to share that. And then employee engagement and operational excellence, which I mean, you have the 8 steps, like you are the master of operations. So, all right, so let's let's end it with that, with
All right,
30
so let's go
seconds or
one at a
so.
time. The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one.
No, for sure. Well, we'll go client experience. So tell me, what is the value proposition that Alice and Trixie and your marketing rep company, if you want to bundle them together, of how you made the client have a great experience?
I'll just say this, and this goes for the retailer and to the direct to the consumer, because we were online for the last few years, going direct to consumer. And I'll just say, honestly, I think the fact that we stood by our product,
Mm,
and that if they didn't sell something, like for instance, the retailer, if they didn't sell something, we would take it back and put
mm,
them into something else. And in my industry, it's called like swapping. So they would call you and be like, you know what, I got these 6 styles, but this one style, I'm stuck with it. I'm sitting with it. Is there any chance you have anything that I could switch it for? So that's called swapping. So I think the fact that people always knew there was an out if something like just really didn't take off for their customer. So they knew that we would stand behind our products. And similarly with the direct to consumer, the same thing. Somebody wanted to return something, I always said, just take it back, take
mm.
it back, take it back. I like, just take it back. Like, just take it back. Like, I just like done. Like, I just feel like, let them be happy. Let's all move on. We don't need to be talking about this anymore. Well, we have bigger fish to fry. That was always like
Sure.
something I would say, like, we have bigger fish to fry. Just let customers should be happy. Cause to me, one unhappy customer could end up being 50, because
Yeah.
they told somebody and then they told somebody and so on and so on and so on. And I'm just like, it's just so not worth it to me. So I think that would be the value prop with the clientele.
Well, in your industry, yeah, you're right. I mean, one bad experience, it's one of those industries that unfortunately it's a multiplier on the negative side more than even on the positive side. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what a great mindset that people can learn from. So the next one is employee engagement. What's 30, 45 seconds of just kind of how you connected with your employees, how you kept them engaged for your brand?
I would say valuing their ideas and opinions. I would say, having, we would have meetings and then people would have ideas, and then, definitely acknowledging them, and yeah, and if something could be improved and needed to be integrated, definitely open to those ideas. It wasn't my way or the highway, do it this way. It's like, if you have, you're doing it, you're physically doing it. Like, do you ever watch those like the undercover boss, he goes to a place and he's like, this is the way they've been doing it all this time. Like, this is so stupid. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but the people know, like, they know if there's a better way. So you have to listen to your people.
I love it. I love it. And last one, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we'll put the link on for the 8 steps that Angela talked about, because I think that you'll love what she has to share. And then she'll help you kind of get to that next level, especially when you're looking at breaking into this fashion industry. So operational excellence, what's 30 seconds on that you could really kind of just hammer the gun on and see, like, hey, this is the things that we did a little bit different with operations?
I would just say, under promise and over deliver, under promise and over deliver. And that's when I said I cushion those deliveries, so I knew I could always ship on time. Just always, because then the customer is happy. You're not put in a position to be lowering your profit margins or possibly getting order cancellations.
Mm.
I think, yeah, under promise and over deliver would be, I don't know if that's too succinct, but we only
No,
have.
hey, simplicity is the power side of things, right? So I love it. I love it. Well, Angela, Taylor, George, thank you so much. I've loved the friendship that we've started to create over the last couple of months, and hearing you on Clubhouse and the expertise that you have. And it's not just fashion, but ladies and gentlemen, this lady is powerhouse on different levels. She's got a lot of great mindset things and going on. So tell everybody how to connect with you. What is your favorite way to connect with your audience and what's going on? We're going to build this tribe on the Go for CEO channel, and maybe a way to connect with you as far as online, offline, and how would you like to connect with people?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking. I have a YouTube channel, the Fashion Masterclass. So there's like a lot. I have a bunch of videos that I did. I'm actually going to get back on there and do more live streams and stuff. But there's a lot of good, just content right now on the Fashion Masterclass on YouTube. But my Instagram is still under my company name, which is Alice and Trixie. It's ALICEAND TRIXIE. That's my Instagram. So DM me on Instagram. I think that's probably the best ways.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, follow this lady. All right, go to her YouTube channel and subscribe. And hey, as you're here, subscribe to the Go for CEO channel. Tell some people about the Go for CEO channel. Share this video. It'll be out in the next couple of weeks, and looking forward to just being a part of the community. And thank you so much, Angela. We'll talk very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Don. Thanks for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Awesome.